The biggest thing is, I know it's not very sexy to talk about, and we often joke in the municipal world, but honestly, infrastructure has got to be first and foremost. The deficit that we're facing instrumental. A lot of our infrastructure is aging out, and we need to get a handle on that. We need a commitment from not only the federal government but the provincial government too. And we know that the property tax owner can't carry this entire burden, and we need to make sure that we're asking those questions and making sure that the funding streams and the grants are available so that we can make our communities as resilient and sustainable into the future as we can.
Mark your calendars as the race is officially on. The countdown for Election Day has begun, and as Canadians prepare to head to the polls for the 45th general election slated for April 28th, we're launching a brand new federal election series on this show, Municipal Affairs Canada Votes 2025. From coast to coast to coast, we'll be diving into the key issues that matter most at the local level. What do municipalities want to see addressed in this pivotal election? That's exactly what we're here to find out on this new series. From housing to infrastructure, from bail reform to resource development, from agriculture to social services, municipalities across Canada are tackling a wide range of challenges, but they can't do it alone. They need a strong and reliable partner at the federal level to help build stronger, more resilient communities. Now, to kick off this special election series, we're starting here in the province of Alberta, where the political landscape is set for an interesting contest. At the time of dissolution, 30 seats in Alberta were held by the Conservative Party of Canada, with 2 seats held by the Liberal Party of Canada and another 2 seats held by the New Democratic Party. But there's a new dynamic in play this year. After redistribution of the seats, Alberta has gained 3 new seats, bringing the total number of seats in the House of Commons to 37 for the province of Alberta. This could shake things up as parties vie for support in both urban and rural parts of the province. Today, we're zeroing in on the needs of rural municipalities in the province of Alberta. What do they want to hear from party leaders and local candidates? What priorities are top of mind as they look to the next federal government? Today, we are honored to be joined by Westerlund, President of the Rural Municipalities of Alberta. First elected as RMA President in November of 2024, Westerlund brings a wealth of experience and a passionate voice for rural municipalities. She will share her perspectives on what rural municipalities need from federal leaders and what RMA is hoping to see as Canada prepares for this critical election. So without further ado, let's dive in. President, thank you so much for sitting down with me and talking about this critical, important federal election that we have been thrust upon. April 28th, we're heading to the polls. From RMA's perspective, what are you hoping to hear from the party leaders and local candidates as this election unfolds over the next 36 days?
I think the biggest thing for municipalities, not only in Alberta, but right across this country, is we're all facing a looming infrastructure deficit. RMA did do a report and released it earlier this year. We are facing about a $17 billion infrastructure deficit, so that is front and top of mind for municipalities for sure.
Now, I know because I follow RMA on social media, RMA has been in Ottawa advocating with Conservative Party members, Liberal members, NDP members. What are you hoping to hear? Are you hoping for a specific pledge to address this infrastructure challenge that your rural municipality members are facing? Or are you hoping for a larger sit-down conversation with the next government? What are you hoping to hear from the leaders?
We're definitely hoping for both. I think if we can get the party leaders to commit to some sort of infrastructure announcement and taking a look at the long-term sustainability of infrastructure funding for municipalities. And of course, the other piece is absolutely, we want to be sitting down at the table. We want to have those conversations. We want to tell our story, I think, which is probably the most important aspect of the story and what we're facing out on the landscape. You know, I often refer to our provincial leaders, but I will do it the same with the federal leaders as well. I mean, the decisions are not that are being made in Ottawa should be made in our communities and in rural communities, and not all the solutions are also found in the major cities. They're found out on the landscape around us.
So what are you hoping for from that statement alone? It sounds like you're hoping to have less Ottawa in Alberta and more RMA in Alberta.
Well, we know for a fact, and through your conversations, Chris, I think you can agree with me. Each municipality is unique in their own way, and the autonomy is important too for our communities. We're the leaders that are closest to the residents and closest to the people. So the more ability that we have to make local decisions, the better, because that money will be well spent for sure.
What looking at the local level, because Alberta is traditionally a blue province. More rural parts of the province have traditionally voted blue. At dissolution, there was 30 seats for the Conservatives, 2 seats for the Liberals, 2 seats for the NDP. So there may be a sense that Alberta is often overlooked. How do you get Alberta issues around the infrastructure on the ballot when traditionally, and I've covered enough elections to know that I would hard pressed to say that the Conservative Party leader is going to Oyen to do a campaign stop or going to Clearwater County or Brazeau County to do a stop. How do you get those major Alberta issues like infrastructure on the federal radar when we are often seen as the forgotten cousin during a federal election?
Well, it is difficult for sure, but that's where the piece comes in. That's very important. It's making sure that municipal elected officials are meeting with their local MPs and meeting with the local candidates. Because if we can get them to listen, we know the message is sent from the bottom up to the top. So I think that is going to be key and very important over the next 36 days. And I would encourage my municipal elected friends right across rural Alberta to make sure that you're having that conversation with all the candidates that are running within your area, because that is the only way we're going to get our message up. And of course, once the dust has settled and the election is over, RMA is committed fully into participating in Ottawa, which obviously means a trip probably in the near future to make sure that we're at those tables once things settle in Ottawa and that we're making sure that our voices are heard.
One of the big concerns that I heard at the most recent RMA convention, which would literally serendipitous happened about a week before the election call, or a few days before the election call, I should say, was the idea around tariffs and tariffs on the resource sector, which would decimate some of these smaller rural communities that sort of are the lifeblood of what Alberta is. Are you, because while you talk about infrastructure, which is a key priority, are you hoping to hear something from either Pierre Poilievre, Mark Carney, Jagmeet Singh around how they would address that resource tariff on Alberta resources?
You've nailed it right on the head. It's another huge issue for rural Alberta, especially on the energy sector. But we'd be amiss if we didn't talk about tariffs and the issues on the agricultural sector as well as the forestry sectors. It seems it's coming at every avenue with us. So we definitely need to make sure that when we're heading to the ballot box and having those conversations, that we keep that type of conversation front and foremost too as well. I've been reading and following social media and the news outlets, and it sounds like this election is going to be fought on the trade war, obviously, that's happening with the US and with China too, because we do know some of those tariffs have come in from China as well. So we will be definitely filling in and making sure the stories are being told and the information is being sent from the boots on the ground, and making sure that message is sent that this is unacceptable. Not only does it hurt the residents with our own province and on the rural landscape, we know that our friends south of the border are hurting just as much as us. So
One other area I want to talk about, and this is an important one because over the last few weeks, I've heard more and more municipalities, not just in Alberta, but across Western Canada, talk about bail reform. Bail reform is a must that this next government will need to address. Now, I'm not privy to all the conversations that you've had with your members, but I've got to ask: is this a topic of much consideration that the next government needs to address? Because it seems like there's a revolving door of these criminals getting caught and then putting back on out on the street.
Yeah, another key important issue that we're facing on the landscape, we know generally it's a handful, the same, 10, 15 criminals creating, more than, I'd say 90% of the issues that we're facing in our community. And, I'd be amiss if I didn't tell your listeners and didn't tell you, I've been, the victim of it too as well. I've had, over the years, in the last decade, I've had 6 attempted break-ins at my property. So I feel it too. And enough, again, it's enough is enough with this. We know what the issues are. We know where the bottlenecks are. Unfortunately, our RCMP and our police forces are doing an excellent job in our community, removing these individuals when they're caught. The issue obviously lies with itself is once they go before a JP or a justice or the courts, often they receive a slap on the hand and are re-released. I tell the story, and I wish I was joking, but I'm not. Our staff sergeant reports regularly to my council, and you know, jokes aside, they picked up an individual for break and enter, to have him released, to pick him back up again 2 hours later, to have him released and pick him up for the third time in less than 24 hours for the same issues. Finally, the individual was remanded into custody, but again, he'll probably go before the courts and get a slap on the wrist, and will be back at her. Just like before. So we definitely need to get a handle on that. We need to get tougher with our laws. And a lot of this issue also, a lot of our criminals, I know it goes back to a lot of mental health issues and addictions issues too. So it's a complex issue. I believe it's not going to be fixed overnight, but we need to roll our sleeves up and get to work on it.
Last question before I let you go, because I am cautious of time here, and I know you're a busy president. What do you want Albertans to be asking their local candidates in this election when it comes to rural municipal issues?
The biggest thing is, I know it's not very sexy to talk about, and we often joke in the municipal world, but honestly, infrastructure has got to be first and foremost. The deficit that we're facing is instrumental. A lot of our infrastructure is aging out, and we need to get a handle on that. We need a commitment from not only the federal government but the provincial government too. And we know that the property tax owner can't carry this entire burden, and we need to make sure that we're asking those questions and making sure that the funding streams and the grants are available so that we can make our communities as resilient and sustainable into the future as we can.
Awesome. President Westerlund, thank you so much for sitting down with me. Always a pleasure.
Excellent. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for tuning in for the very first episode of Municipal Affairs Canada Votes 2025. If you haven't already, be sure to subscribe to the show on your favorite podcast platforms or on YouTube. And if you can, follow us on social media. Now, if you want to learn more about the people in the communities that we feature on this show, this segment, and our other sister shows, head over to crossborderinterviews.ca and subscribe there as well. Your support means the world to us. So if you can, share this episode with your friends, your family, and yes, even your community. It helps keep the conversation going. Until next time, stay informed, stay engaged, and we'll be back with a brand new episode of Municipal Affairs Canada Votes 2025 tomorrow.